Okay, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine a reality where your earliest memories are just completely defined by scarcity. The freezing cold of a tiny apartment, and that constant quiet anxiety of your parents calculating every single penny. What if your childhood was so incredibly poor that your family couldn't even afford basic medical treatment? For a lot of people, this isn't just some hypothetical thought experiment. It's a crushing daily reality.
Think about what it would be like to grow up watching your parents struggle every single day, knowing there was absolutely zero safety net beneath you. No backup plan, no emergency fund, just this relentless, exhausting pressure to survive another week. Imagine the heavy emotional toll that would take on a child, just watching the adults they depend on completely buckle under the weight of the world. Now, you'd probably think a start in life that incredibly bleak would permanently limit someone's future, right? But what if I told you that a child in that exact situation grew up to build one of the most recognizable global brands in history?
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the story of the boy who sold water bottles to survive and ultimately transformed a single small shop into a staggering billion-dollar empire. We're talking about the incredible story of Howard Schultz. This is a real-world cinematic journey where the stakes were literally life and death, and it shows us exactly how far sheer human will can take you.
Section 1. A Childhood in Poverty. The Broken Leg That Changed Everything.
So let's go back to the beginning. Howard was born in Brooklyn, living in this really cramped, noisy public housing apartment. His dad worked these grueling, physically demanding, low-paying jobs that offered zero health insurance, absolutely no job security. They were basically living right on the terrifying edge of ruin. And then, one bitter winter, the absolute worst happened. His father fell and broke his leg while working. And the equation here was stark and brutal. A father's broken leg equaled lost income, almost instantly. Because there was no health insurance, no safety net whatsoever, this wasn't just a painful medical emergency, it was an absolute financial catastrophe. The entire family was plunged into a survival crisis, literally unsure of how they were going to put food on the table.
Watching his father basically get cast aside, just helpless and broken, that left a permanent, indelible mark on young Howard. In the quiet desperation of that Brooklyn apartment, it forged a really powerful childhood promise. He said, "If I ever build a company, I'll treat employees with dignity." Now, he didn't have a company. He certainly didn't have any money. But he made this profound, emotional vow to himself right there, right in the middle of his family's darkest, most vulnerable moment.
Section 2. The Coffee Revelation. From Selling Blood to a Seattle Storefront.
Howard just flat out refused to let his circumstances dictate his destiny. He worked incredibly hard in school, defying the odds to become the very first person in his entire family to go to college. But actually, getting there was only half the battle. To pay his expenses, he hustled through odd jobs, and in his most desperate moments, he actually resorted to selling his own blood just to get by. Yeah, you heard that right. Eventually, after he graduated, he found work as a salesman for a kitchen equipment company, and it was there that this highly unusual data point crossed his desk. A tiny, unknown Seattle shop was buying an exceptionally large number of drip coffee machines. He was like, why is this one little storefront buying so much equipment? It was this mystery he just couldn't ignore. So he decides to travel all the way to Seattle to see it for himself. And that shop, it was called Starbucks.
Now, back then, Starbucks was basically nothing like it is today. They only had a few stores, and they strictly sold bags of roasted coffee beans. That's it. You couldn't buy fancy lattes or frappuccinos. It was just the heavy, dark smell of plain roasted beans. But Howard completely fell in love with the company's passion and actually convinced the owners to hire him. Soon after, he takes this fateful business trip to Milan, Italy. And wow, there he discovers a completely different world. Milan's cafes were alive. They were these amazing places for community, filled with the sounds of clinking porcelain, friends meeting up, laughing, and that rich aroma of fresh espresso. They weren't just retail stores, they were the vibrant, pulsing center of daily Italian life. And Howard was struck by this massive vision. He wanted to bring that exact, deeply human experience back to America.
Section 3. 200 Rejections. The Valley of Struggle and the Refusal to Quit.
As we all know, great visions are rarely accepted immediately. When Howard enthusiastically pitched his idea to create these true coffee cafes, the original owners of Starbucks rejected it outright. They just didn't believe Americans wanted a cafe experience. So, Howard left. He stepped out completely on his own to start a new coffee company. But finding investors for an unproven concept is notoriously difficult. Howard ended up facing a staggering mountain of doubt. 200 rejections.
I mean, just imagine the sheer emotional weight of hearing the word no 200 separate times. Each no echoing the exact same doubt. Americans are never going to pay a premium price for coffee. It seemed like a completely dead end.
But Howard refused to quit. Despite the mountains of rejection, despite the crushing silence of unreturned phone calls and the lack of initial funding, his determination remained absolutely unbreakable. He kept pitching, he kept pushing, and he kept refining his vision. And eventually, against all odds, he did it. He finally scraped together enough money to open the doors of his very first cafe.
Section 4. Building the Empire. Transforming the American Coffee Experience.
A few years after Howard started his own successful venture, the opportunity of an absolute lifetime just appeared out of thin air. The original Starbucks owners decided they wanted to sell the company. Howard didn't hesitate for a second. He bought Starbucks. And man, once he had the reins, he completely overhauled the American coffee landscape. He introduced the rich espresso drinks he tasted in Italy. He filled the stores with comfortable, inviting seating. He piped in relaxing, atmospheric music. He meticulously recreated that welcoming, vibrant Italian atmosphere. Basically, he turned the coffee shop from a stark, simple retail transaction into a true destination, a third place between work and home.
The results? Historic. Today, millions of people visit Starbucks across the globe every single day. People just resonated deeply with the new model. Store after store opened up, city after city followed suit, from Seattle to Chicago and eventually to Tokyo, London, and beyond. What started as this single, visionary idea spread across the entire globe, completely changing modern coffee culture forever. The boy from Brooklyn who couldn't even afford the basics had successfully built an international empire. Section 5. Fulfilling a promise, honoring his father's struggle.
But you see, true success isn't just measured by global expansion or quarterly profits. It's really about remembering exactly where you came from. Howard never forgot that freezing Brooklyn apartment. He never forgot his father's broken leg or that utter, terrifying lack of a safety net. And because he remembered that pain, Howard implemented radical policies that were completely unheard of in retail at the time. Things like health insurance and comprehensive benefits provided to employees, even part-time workers. He actually followed through on that powerful childhood promise. He deliberately built the exact kind of dignified, supportive company he desperately wished had existed for his own family all those years ago.
Section 6. The motivational takeaway. Your background doesn't decide your future.
Howard Schultz's journey proves something absolutely incredible about the human spirit. Your current circumstances, no matter how bleak they might seem right now, do not define your final destiny. The boy who once worried about paying basic bills became the man who changed coffee culture around the entire world. And why? Because true success begins with a vision to dream bigger than your current situation. It requires the courage to keep going when things get incredibly tough, and it demands the determination to never, ever let rejection have the final word. Howard's success didn't begin with some massive inheritance. It began with these 3 unshakable traits.
So what's the real takeaway from this explainer? It's that your life can change with a single decision to keep moving forward. The question is, will you make yours? Because sometimes the life you have always dreamed of is sitting just on the other side of your 200th rejection. Keep pushing, keep learning, and never let go of your vision.